So we're going through the fourth chapter of Taanit, of fasting, and we are talking only very incidentally about fasting. We're really talking about special occasions when special things happened. And we've already learned that the people of Israel were split into 24 groups to accompany the sacrifices in Jerusalem. Each group was called a mishmar, kind of a guard. And when the time came for the mishmar to go up to Jerusalem, the Kohanim and the Leviim, the priests and the Levites would go up to Jerusalem. But the Israelites, who didn't need to work in the temple, would stay in their cities. And the Mishnah says, Vekorim Ma'aseh Bereshit, and they'd read about the story of the creation, as if to say, the world was created by God, and now we're carrying out the divine service. They're just linking up the service in the temple with the original creation of the world. That's how the second Mishnah of the fourth chapter closes. And now in the third Mishnah, the Mishnah will go on to talk about, well, hang on, when we say they read about the creation, well, what did they read? And the Mishnah begins actually with a paragraph which is present in most printed texts, but it's actually not in the Kaufman manuscript. So I've put it in square brackets. The Kaufman manuscript follows on very nicely from the story of creation. Remember, the previous Mishnah says they used to read Maaseh Bereshit. They read the story of the creation. And the Kaufman manuscript goes straight on to say, by Yom HaRishon Bereshit. On Sunday, they read Bereshit in the beginning. And Yehi Rakia, that's what happened the next day. Basheni, Yehi Rakia, and Yikavu Hamayim. On Monday, they read, let there be a firmament, and let the waters be gathered together. Those are the next 2 days, and so on. So the Kaufman manuscript goes on very nicely just to describe exactly what they read every day. But there's an extra paragraph which is in the printed text, and I thought we should, I didn't want to cut it out completely, because it clearly has some kind of, if it's universally in the printed text, so I didn't want to just skip over it. And it explains that the people of the Ma'amad actually fasted. So this is the connection with Ta'anit. The people, the Israelites who are gathering to read the story of the creation, they are also fasting. The men of the Ma'amad, that is the Israelites, connected to the Mishmar, the Israelites who are staying behind in their towns, they would fast for 4 days of the week. It was a tough life, right? Being in the land of Israel in those days. They'd fast for 4 days. Miyom Sheni v'ad Yom Chamishi. I'm presuming they only fasted during the day. I can't believe they fasted day and night for 4 days. So 4 days, Miyom Sheni v'ad Yom Chamishi, from Monday to Thursday. V'lo hayu mitanim erev Shabbat. They didn't fast on Friday, mipnei kavod haShabbat, because of respect for Shabbat. V'lo be'echad b'Shabbat. They didn't fast on Sunday, kedei shelo yetz'u mi menucha va'oneg ligia v'tanit ve'yamutu. They didn't fast on Sunday, so they shouldn't switch from rest and delight to weariness and fasting and then die. If you fast on a Sunday, you might die because you've enjoyed yourself so much on Shabbat. And that sudden change, that sudden switch over, it might kill you. So they only fasted from Monday to Thursday. Okay, that's the extra paragraph in the Mishnah, which we don't have in the Kaufman manuscript. And then the printed manuscript goes back to join Kaufman. So on Sunday, they read the first 2, if you like, the first 2 days of creation in the beginning, and let there be a firmament. On Monday, they read the next 2. Let there be a firmament and let the waters be gathered together. So in other words, on every day, they read that day's part of creation and they read the next day's. So they go ahead, if you like, 1 day. And that means, by the way, they read not quite 10 Pesukim, but nearly 10 verses every day. And remember, we learned in the Mishnah of Megillah that you have to read at least you have to have at least 3 aliyot, and you have to read at least 3 verses per aliyah. Obviously, one can repeat. So if there aren't the necessary 10 verses, one would just repeat. But you can see that reading 2 days worth of happenings gives you a little bit more scope to actually carry out your 3 aliyot and nearly get to your 10 verses. So on Monday, they read, let there be a firmament and let the waters be gathered together. On Tuesday, Bashlishi kavu amayim yehi morot. On Tuesday, let the waters be gathered together and let there be lights. Baravi yehi morot yishrot amayim. On Wednesday, let there be lights and let the waters swarm with fish. B'chamishi yishrotzu amayim totzei haaretz. On Thursday, let the waters swarm and let the earth bring forth totzei haaretz deshe. This is let the earth bring forth grass. This is the creation of plants. On Friday, they read totzei haaretz, let the plants be created, and of course this goes on to the creation of humans and animals. And then they read vayechalu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am, and they read, and then the heavens and the earth were completed and all their hosts. So in other words, in 6 days during this week, they cover the 7 days of creation by doing by doing this little bit extra reading every day. Parsha Gdolah Korinot Habashnia Bishnaim. If there was a long section, I guess this is a section of more than 3 verses, then 2 people could read it. Vehaktana biyachid. For a short section, only 1 person. In other words, you can call up 2 people to read 1 long section. For a short section, you need to call up someone for a minimum of 3 verses. So if it's a short section, you can only call up 1 person. Bashacharit uva musaf, and they do this at shacharit and musaf. And then at mincha time, uva mincha nichnasin vekorin al pihen. So at mincha, they'd read it off by heart. Kekorin et shema, just like they'd recite the shema. So you get a sense, actually, as to how people used to operate when they didn't have a lot of printed books. So now anybody can take down a Siddur in the synagogue and just look up Shema, but they had to, I think they probably knew Shema off by heart. They'd read it off by heart because they didn't have, manuscripts were expensive. You couldn't have a manuscript just for Shema. And then Erev Shabbat, Bamincha lo hayu nichnasin. On Erev Shabbat, on Friday, Bamincha, at Mincha, lo hayu nichnasin mipnei kvod haShabbat. On Friday at Mincha, they didn't assemble at all, actually, because of kvod haShabbat, because of respect for the Shabbat, because everyone is getting ready for Shabbat at this point. So we're not going to do the Ma'amad. We're not going to do the Ma'amad Friday afternoon. And Erev Shabbat is not the only day when we don't do the Ma'amad. Kol yom sheyesh bo halel ein bo ma'amad shacharit. If there's halel, so for example at Hanukkah, there's no ma'amad at shacharit. Korban musaf. Well, that, for example, would be Rosh Chodesh. Ein bo ne'ilah. There's no ma'amad at ne'ilah, and I think the Mishnah implies here there's none even at ne'ilah, and certainly none at shacharit. Korban eitzim ein bo mincha. If there's a wood offering, there's none at mincha, at least according to Rabbi Akiva, Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo Ben Azai. Ben Azai said to him, Kach. Ben Azai is often the kind of the chavruta of Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai said to him, Kach haya Rabbi Yehoshua shoneh. Now Rabbi Yehoshua is the generation before Ben Azai and Rabbi Akiva, or he's half a generation before. So Rabbi Yehoshua is the teacher, effectively, of Rabbi Akiva. So Ben Azai points out, Kach haya Rabbi Yehoshua shoneh. Thus did Rabbi Yehoshua teach. Korban musaf ein bo mincha. When there's a musaf offering, there's not a mincha. Korban eitzim ein bo ne'ilah. When there's a wood offering, not a ne'ilah. In other words, just the opposite way round from the way Rabbi Akiva remembered it. Chazar Rabbi Akiva liot shoneh k'divrei Ben Azai. So Rabbi Akiva retracted and he taught like ben Azai. So what are these wood offerings? I mean, and the Mishnah is very interesting here because we're going, again, sort of in a chain-like way from topic to topic by loose association. What are these wood offerings? Well, we need to look them up in Nehemiah. And Ezra goes, in the book of Nehemiah, Ezra goes to Jerusalem. He reads from the Torah in the public square, actually on Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of the 7th month. People are incredibly upset and ashamed when they hear the words of the Torah. This must be the first time that the Torah has been read in Jerusalem for, 50. I mean, the exile was 50 years, right? So Ezra's coming back from Babylon. He's reading the Torah. It's 50 years. People have forgotten Torah. And the people are ashamed, and the leaders of the people make a pledge, and they make all kinds of pledges. Actually, for example, they pledge they're not going to intermarry. Then, it's a rather gendered verse, actually, that not that they won't intermarry, but they won't give their daughters in marriage to the people of the land or take their daughters for our sons. And then they say, we've cast lots to bring the wood offering to the house of our God, Lahavi, Leveit Eloheinu, Leveit Avotenu Leitim Mezumanim, to bring the wood offering to the house of our God by clans annually at set times to provide fuel for the altar. So what are these set times? And by the way, this shows us what a valuable commodity wood was. And there are some places like Sweden and Norway and North America in some parts where wood is just so readily available. It's sprouting all over the place. Like, why would you need to make arrangements to bring wood? But in the land of Israel, wood is a scarce commodity. It doesn't just sprout. It just doesn't sprout. There aren't that many trees. So we need to make arrangements to provide wood to service the altar. And these set times, which are mentioned in the book of Nehemiah, which are agreed to after Ezra reads the Torah in the public square in Jerusalem, these are then outlined. These are the wood offerings, which the Mishnah is referring to. And the Mishnah is going to specify them. Zmanat se kohanim, ve'am, Batisha, the times of the wood of the priests and the people are 9. There are 9 times. Bechad benisan b'nei Arach ben Yehuda. He's actually mentioned in the book of Ezra. He's one of the people that come up from Bavel. On the first of Nisan, the family of Arach of Yehuda. Be'esrim b'Tammuz b'nei David ben Yehuda. On the 20th of Tammuz, the family of David of Yehuda. I think he's also mentioned. B'chamisha v'av b'nei Parosh ben Yehuda. He's definitely mentioned in Ezra. On the 5th of Av, the family of Parosh ben Yehuda. B'shivavo b'nei Yonadav ben Rechav. On the 7th of the same month, the family of Yonadav of Rechav. I'm not sure who he is. Ba'asaravo b'nei Sna'ah ben Binyamin. On the 10th of that month, the family of Sna'ah of Binyamin. So you can see we're bringing a lot of wood, by the way, in the month of Av. I guess because the month of Av, the summer, we're at the height of summer, basically, and the wood has grown, right? So now's the time to collect the wood and bring it in. It keeps going. I mean, we're going to collect a lot of wood in Av. B'chamisha sarbo, on the 15th of Av. B'nei Zatuel ben Yehuda, the family of Zatuel of Yehuda, ve'imahem kohanim ulvim, and with them all the priests and the Levites, v'chol misha ta'ashiv to, and everybody who wasn't certain of their tribe. So there's a kind of a general, the 15th of Av generally is a sort of a day where we can turn over a new leaf, when the boundaries between the tribes are blurred, when the tribes intermarried with one another after the civil war with Benjamin. So you can see why the 15th of Av is when everyone who doesn't know what tribe they're in, they just get together. And then there are some odd people here. Uvnei Gonvei Eli, the pestle stealers. The Gemara says these are people that used to sneak their first fruits into Jerusalem when it was forbidden to bring them, by covering them up with they'd sort of they carry them actually in the mortar with the pestle on top, and they pretend that they were carrying them in order to carry on packing them down. B'nei kotzei ketziot, and the fig packers. These were figs which were kind of packed into the tubs, so that people would bring their produce to Jerusalem on the pretext of, it sort of being a industrial packing operation. And they are mentioned, of course, as people who had the right to bring wood. But Esrimbo B'nei Pachat Moab ben Yudah, on the 20th of the month, Pachat Moab of Yudah. But Esrimba Elul now was stretching out, right? B'nei Adin ben Yudah, the family of Adin of Yudah. B'echad b'tevet Shavu v'nei Parosh Shniya, on the first of Tevet, the family of Parosh of Yudah, they come back. They do it a second time. And be'echad b'tevet lo haya bo ma'amad shehaya bo halel korban musaf ve'korban eitzim, and there was no ma'amad. So now we're going to come back to the ma'amads, right? This Mishnah is sort of circling around the ma'amad. On the first of Tevet, there's no ma'amad. First of Tevet is Chanukah, and it's Rosh Chodesh. So there's musaf for Rosh Chodesh. There's halal. I guess there's Hallel for Rosh Chodesh, but I think Hallel for Rosh Chodesh is sort of by custom. I think there's Hallel for Chanukah. I think this is the Hallel the Mishnah is probably referring to. So on the first of Tevet, so it's good that we're learning this this Mishnah now, just a couple of days before the first of Tevet. Bechad b'Tevet, on the first of Tevet, lo hayavu ma'amad, there's no ma'amad, shehayavu Hallel, korban musaf ve korban eitzim. There was Hallel, there was musaf, and there was the wood offering.